Strategic Hotbox with Dr. Brandy Love Stankovic. Discussing leadership, business, and how to take control of your life and achieve greatness. It's time to kick some ass.
Hey, it's your girl, Dr. Brandy Stankovic, host of the Strategic Hotbox and Chief Strategy Officer for CE Solutions Group. There are so many unspoken topics in diversity, equity, and inclusion. One specifically that we're going to talk about today is the N-word. You will never even hear me speak that word. I'm not even comfortable saying it even today. And today we're going to talk about why. What it means to the people in the room, what value it holds. We're also going to talk about, at times, how exclusion can be unintentional, how creating affinity with one group can unintentionally exclude another. Let's uncover things like authenticity. We often ask for it, but only when the situation allows. And our unconscious bias can cause judgment without discretion. And in being our true selves, mistakes may be targeted and we become a victim of cancel culture. And when do we give people the opportunity to apologize, learn, and change? Is there a line of no going back? Or should we shift to a culture of accountability? Let's find out.
I am sick to death of men getting a pass and saying boys will be boys, and not being able to have the self-control that God gave a dog, looking at a woman that chooses to show her beauty, a beauty that God put on her, and men not being able to see her as anything but an object that they can rub against.
I'm teaching her.
You okay?
Her body is hers. And it's beautiful. And, while I grew up being taught, cover it up, put bigger pants on. I didn't grow up as a skinny girl. I just didn't. I have always had a little plump in the back. And
The hard balance on that note is making sure that I know when to step aside to allow everyone that wants to be, needs to be, has voice to be there. And so it is a balance on all of the realms, but we all do.
We've had the conversation. I get it now. Renee, you can't do that. You are a leader. You must be better. Just what we're trying to do with everybody else. Expose it, deal with it, talk about it, understand why you're thinking that, and then you can replace it with a new thought.
Right.
Any type of exclusion creates pain and hardship. It doesn't matter what kind of exclusion it is. So whether it's because it belongs to you or not, and I completely understand where you're coming from, but any kind of exclusion, no matter what it is, creates boundaries and hardship.
We're good friends.
Don't forget, anybody that reads these doesn't have to be the one that is the first responder on it. And I want to go into this saying that I intentionally picked topics that were diverse. I intentionally picked different demographics to hit, and I intentionally used language in order to incite conversation.
Or riot.
She's coming.
I look at my feet on real quick.
Well, she used incite purposely.
Right?
Let's go. All right. A beautiful bodied woman attends a gala event in a revealing dress and red lipstick. She is subsequently hit on and lightly molested all night. Was she asking for it? Should she tone down her look to fit in?
Can I go?
Yes.
Oh,
No, you go first. You go first.
what if she just dropped 2 underpants and all her life she hid, and tonight is her night, and she is feeling herself? Did she deserve it? I don't think she would.
I am sick to death of men getting a pass and saying boys will be boys, and not being able to have the self-control that God gave a dog, looking at a woman that chooses to show her beauty, a beauty that God put on her, and men not being able to see her as anything but an object that they can rub against. I am sick unto death about men getting that pass, and it needs to end. Because that person could very well be my daughter. I had to once, during a credit union convention, stop a board member from literally trying to kiss a member of the young professionals group I was mentoring.
Oh.
He was drunker than a skunk.
It's wrong.
And I know that his excuse will be, oh, it's just because I was drunk, because I just gave the excuse. I know, hey, didn't mind. And the worst part of it was his wife was there with him, and she did nothing to stop him.
Is it the wife's job?
It is the man's responsibility to have enough self-control and say that is not a sexual object, that is not just a soft place for you to put something of yours in. That is a human being designed in the image of God. If you're not willing to say, if you're not willing to respect her like that, I don't care who you are, I don't care what you get paid, I don't care how big your squares in the org chart, you need to go into a cage and get control of yourself, or have somebody tell you that you should. I'm sick to death of men like that doing things like that.
I have an 11-year-old, and I dropped her off at a friend's house last week, and you know, anymore, there is no bottom to shirts. They just are crop tops.
Amen. Yes.
They don't make them anymore, and you know, we had bought some stuff, and we ordered it online, and I didn't see her try this on before she tried it on and tried me. And so she got out of the car, and I said, oh, what? And I had to catch myself because I'm teaching her.
You okay?
Her body is hers, and it's beautiful. And, you know, while I grew up being taught, cover it up, put bigger pants on. I didn't grow up as a skinny girl. I just didn't. I have always had a little plump in the back. And, you know, my parents, I grew up very religious, and it was very, you know, cover it up and hide it. And
Or people will think you're asking
Or people will
for it.
think, what about the guy in church who can't keep his hand, goddamn, I'm sorry, hands to himself.
Amen.
Can't keep his eyes to himself. That's not her problem. That's his problem.
But how do you protect her?
And I have a lot of guns. Sorry. But, you know, it was having to stop myself and say, you look beautiful. Have a good time. Don't let nobody talk to you crazy. Don't talk to nobody crazy. You know what I mean? Like,
But that's what it is. That's the education behind it. In education, we deal with this on the daily because of dress codes and, you know, girls can't wear open midriff. Girls can't wear spaghetti straps. Girls can't wear shorts that are, you know, below their, higher than their thumbs, you know, when they put their hands down to their side. But what do the boys can't do,
Exactly.
right? I mean, the boys can wear anything. So there's a lot of talk in education about, you know, we are destroying the female image when we do this. On the other hand, as an educator, it is also a distraction. And so I am torn in that conversation because unfortunately, teenage boys lead their lives with one thing.
absolutely.
And so educating the girls about not allowing that, but also at that age, teenage girls love the attention,
Exactly.
right? So how do you find a balance?
It's a hard
It
balance.
is
In this.
such a hard balance. And I'm literally learning as I have
Yeah.
no idea.
I don't have an
Because
answer, and I'm ahead of school.
Right. And you know, I'm trying a whole new playbook because
Yeah.
I don't want to use it with my parents.
Right.
I love them.
Yeah.
And they did a great job with us. But I want to try something different.
Right.
But it's such a hard balance.
I think it's my job. You know,
Exactly.
I have 3 boys, and I'll be damned if they don't see what Andy's talking about in young ladies, their value, opposed to what they're wearing. Like,
Right.
that's my job. I think that's my responsibility to bring them up to see the true meaning and value in a young lady. So I take personal responsibility that because of your feelings, because of your vulnerability in your daughter, it's my responsibility to make my son not be that person.
Absolutely.
And hopefully, my daughters are 18, almost 17. And I want, when they do, I want them to know why they're dressing the way they're dressing. I want them to understand why they're putting out into the world. I want them to understand, what need is that satisfying. But then also, not to have anyone disrespect them, and also have not them disrespect themselves and think that I have to show more of my belly or my butt or my legs or whatever to get attention. I'm going, what kind of attention do you want? What need is that fulfilling? And I wish I don't have the answers to that just yet. I'm just trying to hold on for dear life right now, because in 2 years they're gonna go out into the world. They're the arrows I've shot out into the world, for better or for worse. And I may not have put enough feathers on them, but by God, I'm going to try and shoot them as straight as I can.
Yeah.
It's a hard balance. It is a hard and very real balance.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to throw in there that it's hikers too. It happens to hikers too. It's not the revealing clothing, the lipstick. It happens to every single woman, no matter what she's wearing.
Yeah.
At any time of life, in any
She could have
setting.
walked in there with army fatigues.
I think that's 100% it, and it's almost like creating a boundary for it. I was bit by a board member at a strategic planning event.
Did you just say bit?
Like bit.
Like physically bit?
Like
teeth on
Bit
you.
the back of my,
Oh.
And it was a social event after the board planning, and the board chair and everybody on the board handled it. Like, they handled it. It happened to be in the service industry, the servicemen industry, men and women, and so there was rank and things, and they handled it. So I was appreciative of the way they handled it. But how do we get there? And I never dress revealing, especially in a professional setting, ever, and yet am I asking for that? Like you said, in the fact of it doesn't matter the realm. And so some of the strategies that we're covering up and things, but then also valuing ourselves, and then also it's such a hard balance. But then, by the way, wanting to feel attractive from time to time, wanting to feel desired without.
Well, and that's the crux of it. I mean, and to your point, the sad thing is it happens. Like teenagers, that's one thing, we need to teach them, we need to educate them. But the saddest thing to me was when I read that this was happening at credit union conferences. And what you just said earlier about the GAC and the crashers, it's like
It wasn't a GAC.
It wasn't.
It was at a different conference or convention. So I'll just leave it at that.
But it has happened.
Yes, it has.
So I mean,
Sedric.
I'm certain.
So, I mean, I think it's so sad that women, even in our industry, feel like they go to work, they go to events, and they are preyed upon that way. I mean, one thing is consensual, but what we're talking about is certainly not. And it's this attitude that men have, that they see a woman and they feel like it's
They feel
okay.
entitled.
Yeah, they do.
It goes back to the value of women. And so I'll full circle this for you, Brandy. When you feel like you can't do diversity work anymore, you absolutely are entitled. You're a woman. You shouldn't feel like you can't do diversity work anymore because you're not a person of color.
The hard balance on that note is making sure that I know when to step aside to allow everyone that wants to be, needs to be, has a voice to be there. And so it is a balance on all of the realms. But we all do. We're going to dig in. So that's perfect. Pass
But
the ball to Cindy.
I needed to say this
Please.
because I'm not going to sit here and not be transparent. I would be that chick taking a photo of the lady and saying, "Can you believe this? Can you believe this? This is how she came. Do you see it? I've got the picture. I've done it. It doesn't make me bad, but how I grew up, you don't dress like that. And it's not about are you asking for it, it's where's the respect for yourself. And it's back to what Annie says, what need are you trying to fill? But I absolutely love, I would have never thought about it the way that you explained it. She just lost 200 pounds. She's proud of herself. She's never been able to wear this type of clothing. when I went from a size 2 to a size 12, my world got opened up. Like, oh, that's different.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I'm never going to be the same. Right?
And I think that I challenge you respectfully in the fact that I think that perpetuates the problem.
No, I just said I'll never be the same.
You know what I mean?
Like we've had the conversation. I get it now. Renee, you can't do that. You are a leader. You must be better. Just what we're trying to do with everybody else. Expose it, deal with it, talk about it, understand why you're thinking that, and then you can replace it with a new thought.
Right.
And he's giving me that new thought. Dasia's giving me that new thought. So with that new thought, and then what Cindy's saying about the school and stuff, it's like, oh wow, yeah, right. An African man that I do work with, he said that the reason why in Africa they school the boys from the girls because they don't want any distractions.
Well, that's why there are private girls' schools and private boys' schools, and people choose to send their kids to those for that reason, because they don't want, I don't know if you remember growing up, but historically, girls always have had more trouble learning in the math and science realm growing up. And it's not because they can't do it, but it's because at those ages when it becomes important, and it's generally around 4th grade when it goes the wrong way, boys at that age are so much louder. And so their voices are heard more, and girls at that age just learn to be quiet, which is really sad. So,
There's a lot of ingrained, yeah.
It's a lot of it.
I think that the biggest thing is that we need to support one another, and I think sometimes the biggest competition for women, or the biggest haters, the biggest whatever, are other women.
Yes.
And I think that we have to bond together, and as well as
But I have to push back on that, Brandy. There's sometimes when stuff is just inappropriate. You cannot come to somebody's wedding, a Kojic wedding, and have the back out is all the way down here. There's nothing but straps, and you got boobs that are as big as I don't know what, because you had them inserted. So it's like
I think there's a time and a place for it.
Exactly. And I won't talk about the times that I wear the strip clothes, so.
well, that's all I had to wear to that wedding. So,
Not judging.
whatever. All right, Cindy.
All right, Megan Rapinoe was recently attacked due to a 2011 tweet. This was the tweet. At somebody, you look Asian with those closed eyes. Well, how did I pick this one? Do we have a culture of growth and learning, or a culture of persecution? Have the woke population become too sensitive? Are we willing to forgive past behavior if change occurs?
So she makes a comment years ago. Somebody finds it deep into her Twitter. She has since evolved and learned, and yet is persecuted for something prior. Good, bad, right thing to do.
I mean, you hope people learn and grow, right? And so, but the other thing is we are a cumulative effect of our every action. So it happened, and are you consciously doing something to make sure that you have educated yourself now so that will never happen again? To me, that's a win. If you can say that you have not only educated yourself but others, so that something ridiculous like that doesn't happen.
But can you share that in 140 characters?
Right.
Yeah.
Is that any different than a white man in college being in blackface?
And then since growing or learning or something.
I wouldn't say growing or learning. I would say, is it any different?
Well, I think that's the key, is the growth, learning, and how do you judge that? Or is the behavior so bad that we never let that person have retribution? We never let that person have forgiveness.
Outrage is easy. Outrage is a one-note symphony. It gets clicks, it gets eyeballs. The redemptive story is much more difficult to tell. And I think if we're truly committed to letting people evolve, then I think we need to say, okay, this was where you were. Tell me how you've grown. What shaped you? Because what you did is not necessarily always who you are. We have this mentality, I think, that we think that by the age of 18, you need to know what you want to do with your life. What do you want to be when you grow up? We ask kids that even when they're verbal. Instead of asking them the question, what problems do you want to solve as you grow? That's the better question, because we're going to evolve. Yes, get outraged. Get outraged by the bad thing that you did. You should be outraged, because we should be able to call ugliness out for what it is. But we should also, in the same breath, be able to say, tell me how you've grown. Let me lean in, put all my biases to the side, and then show me how you've grown. Show me the evidence. Show me the fruit of your repentance.
But who are we to demand that of anybody?
But not demanding,
Or
but
to
say,
draw the
but
line.
just educate me.
Judgment.
Show me where your journey has been. Not because I'm judge and jury, but because I am a sinner broken like you.
Got it.
I'm just a one beggar want to talk to another beggar, trying to find out where the bread is.
Got it.
If we come in with that, I think that's where healing happens. And that is not sexy, and that is not tweetable, and that is not shareable, and it is messy and long, and people will get bored halfway through it. But the people that will care will want to know what the narrative
Is
is.
there a different standard for people that are famous, though, right? Megan Rapinoe,
Yeah.
how she should have handled this.
How is she
Okay,
famous?
who is this person?
Yeah,
She's a
I
soccer player.
Okay. So,
So
and I
she
was
has
one
a
level
public, so she has a public voice.
She's
a public voice. So, should they publicly own their mistakes?
Absolutely.
And then say, like, and this is what I'm doing to be a better person.
And I think that's a really good point you made initially, is that it starts with accountability.
Yeah.
And then show the growth, represent the growth.
Right.
Have the conversations Sandy's describing, and that's key.
And with her having the platform
Exactly.
that she has,
Right.
it can and the followers or however you want to
It could make a
hold it,
change.
it could make a change
Yeah.
because of the amount of eyes that will be on said topic.
Right.
And there used to be there's so much in language that we used to say
Yeah.
that we can't say now. I hate to hear people say the N-word. I love that word, but I love the Niggah version of that word. Love it. It's one of my favorite words. I love to use it.
Do you love it when other people say it?
You can't say that. You can't say it.
Exactly.
Because you won't say AH.
Right.
You say ER, and I'm looking at you crazy.
Right.
So, but that's, there are certain things that we used to say. If someone called us colored now, I had a conversation with a young man. He's not a young man, but an older gentleman, and he does not like being called African American. I don't like being called black. So we agreed to disagree.
Right.
It's okay. And his reason was, he goes, I ain't never been to Africa. Okay, got it.
Okay, so I have the perfect follow-up on that. Kyrie Irving and Dennis Schroeder, NBA basketball players.
Thank you, Zach.
Both got ejected for the first time in their careers during a basketball game this season. Dennis Schroeder used the N-word in the confrontation, because I'm not using the other word, in the confrontation with Irving during the game. Schroeder meant and used the term in more of a bro fashion. So if you saw the game, they interact, they scuffled, got each other's face, got all huffy, and then Kyrie makes some comment. Schroeder's like, "Come on."
Yeah.
Use the word.
Is you say this guy's name is Dennis?
Dennis.
Yeah, sure.
So did Dennis grow up around black people and he's comfortable?
Dennis, I think he's from Germany. Dennis is German. So he
that didn't answer the question.
so let me finish the sentence. So in the fact that he did not grow up around the same culture of the United States in using the word freely. It's not the same. So that is a learned behavior in enculturation.
No, but what my point is that there are white people who identify as black people. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, they're both black.
They're both black.
Oh, I'm really
And I remember the incident, and just to dive into that.
If they're both black, what's the problem?
So Kyrie said later, the N-word is derogatory racial slur. It will never be a term of endearment, never be reclaimed, never be flipped, and never forget its foul in the true history. Throw that N-word out the window, right alongside all of those racist words that are used to describe by people.
Yeah.
We're not
So he's
slaves.
young and woke.
Kyrie?
Yes, he
Youngish.
is, but you know, and I love basketball. It's one of my favorite sports. Kyrie Irving went to Duke.
Oh.
So his experiences. Dennis Schroeder, I can't remember what school he went to, but not being there, I'm not on the court obviously, but he used that in such a locker room sense of brotherhood. Kyrie's experience is absolutely different. So he could not hear it, how
He couldn't understand.
he
couldn't
could
relate
not
to it.
identify
Is
with
he
the way that
educated?
he's, yeah.
Okay.
I would say that he is.
Okay.
But I truly see the sense and how he took that opposed to how Dennis gave it. He gave it from a locker room competitive sense, and this panel might disagree with just using it, period. But I understand where he came from with using it.
Sure.
And
yeah.
then how Kyrie took it.
How he received it.
Because there's no doubt in my mind that he had an experience maybe at Duke being a minority.
Yeah.
And
And it
And-
came
But we-
from a negative
Right.
way.
But we
Right.
don't necessarily want to fill in the gaps in some ways for them specifically, but thinking about the word in general, or other words in general that it's okay for me to say but not okay for somebody else to say because I fit into a certain mold and you don't. Isn't that a creating exclusion?
it happens.
I mean, I'll tell you this. I think this conversation is so powerful because I think we're talking about journeys. You know, we're all in journeys. And you used the word woke earlier. And I think the danger that I hope in the future as a society we address as we all get in this journey is we need to build upon each other and learn from each other. I mean, as a Latino, I wouldn't, even if it was another Latino, I wouldn't want them calling me a spick, for example. I just wouldn't want that. I mean, on a personal level. But the way that I'd address that is I would tell that person, hey, I don't appreciate that word. And, you know, I'm assuming that would be the end of that and we'd move forward. But I think the danger of the woke culture, in my opinion, is that we do need to create allies. I think having allies is so important. And if we don't give an opportunity of someone to genuinely learn and make up for their mistakes, we're going to be in trouble because there's nobody. I mean, I've certainly have done things in college and when I was younger that I regret doing, and I've learned better. And I think it's important to give people that opportunity. In the same vein, I think it's really important for people like you and Andy to be at the table and to help, you know, other white people understand the struggles and the differences of other ethnic minorities, as you've beautifully articulated today. So I think giving each other room to grow and learn is extremely important.
Yes. And I think that it's also about at what point does it need to be socially accepted and we all make a decision to change even if it's not comfortable, right? Meaning the fact of like, let's collectively destroy the word spick. Let's collectively say that's no longer okay. It doesn't matter if it used to be in literature, it doesn't matter if it used to be common. The, you know, collective believe it's time, or is it all individual all the time? And that's where it becomes really difficult. That's where it becomes very confusing for those that aren't in the subculture, whatever that is, to when do you call someone Black, when do you call someone African American, as you shared? Because I had a similar friend that is from Jamaica. Like that isn't me. And so it's then, but it's hard to know, right? And if it's so individual, how do we collectively grow with language?
Well, how do you guys feel about being called white? Some of you guys are Irish, some of you guys are from Germany, some of you guys are from all these different places, England, all that stuff. So do you guys feel any different?
I think the only thing that comes typically when I'm called white is that I'm being excluded. So that's the only time it happens where someone will call me white. I don't have the same experience with everyone in the room and the fact of being called or called out for that. But if it is used, it's typically because I'm being called out versus being described as white.
Yeah, I've personally never had a problem with it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, and that's not illustrative of anybody else's experience. Just for me specifically, That's not really been a thing.
What about cracker?
I like the barrels in which they come in the restaurant that does that humor to deflect. Never been called it before.
Really?
Nope, never have been.
Okay.
And that's, for whatever reason, I've never been called it. Now, have people probably said about me behind my back? Probably.
That's
But I have never, see, this is where my ignorance is actually slamming me in the face right now. I have never once been called a derogatory term based on my race. I have never had to worry about other people using language to delegitimize me, at least not to the extent to which that minorities have. I don't have that experience. I don't have the experience of being made to feel little and small based just on my ethnicity. When I was growing up, I memorized Raiders because I was a nerd. I was a geek. I was everything. I mean, I was a social misfit. Probably still am. But to the extent to which someone has tried to take away my power or my legitimacy by saying, well, you're white, I don't have that soft spot. I don't have that wound.
well, that's it, because that's the thing, and so there isn't an insecurity because of it, right? So somebody could call me white, and there isn't insecurity. It's not like there's power in that, but there's no insecurity in it.
Yes.
Now, if someone had called me a derogatory female term, right, slut or something to that effect, that would hurt my feelings because there's insecurity there.
Yeah, I hate when I get called that. Called slut.
That is
But
I
the same
think
is true.
sometimes when you say the N-word, I think it has been used against a group of people in a derogatory way. And we we have learned to take our pain and turn it into something beautiful. If you think about soul food comes from the scraps that they came, and they turned it into something beautiful to feed our soul. So you take the N-word that was constantly thrown at slaves and every person as a derogatory term, and now you go, Mom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because that's my boy.
I got you.
Man.
I got you.
You took it and turned it into something beautiful. And it's ours. That's ours. You can't say that. You can't say that. Because that's us. They didn't say that against your people. That was my people that was hurt. But we're going to take that hurt now and watch us turn that into unity. Granted, it's become somewhat of a derogatory term that people, but I think that's where sometimes people go, I'm probably still going to use it because when I say it, it's a term of endearment, which is why he was saying, when Dennis said it, it was like, come on. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
does that ultimately, though, create exclusion and keep barriers up that we're
why
trying
should
to
I care?
That's what I'm saying.
Care?
But sometimes, as a culture,
care
that's
about
us.
creating barriers and breaking down exclusion?
We have been beaten and abused and over and over and over and over and over again. Why should I care if it hurts your feelings?
It does, but it doesn't hurt my feelings. It's about not allowing a movement of inclusion to become a movement because we're keeping it exclusionary.
But see, that's why her, did you just see the passion that she said that outside of this circle, she's going to be deemed as the angry black woman?
Yes. Yeah.
And I think we were talking earlier about melting pots, and the term
Remind me to talk about the salad bowl.
What's that?
Remind me to talk about the salad bowl.
That's where I was going to go.
Okay,
that's
go
where I was
there.
going. So
Go there.
we're there. It's less for me. It's not about homogeneity. It's not about making everybody one thing. It is about the salad that kind of brings out the compliments to everybody is that we are all parts of an intricate machine of society, and there does need to be some exclusion, some differentiation there, that there are differences there. And what kind of opportunities can happen when we see those and we reflect those and say, yes, there are barriers and there are places that I cannot go, I am not allowed to go, and I should not go.
Because I don't have that experience.
But there are places also in me and in my machinery that desperately needs yours. That's the only way that I can work when seeing that my broken places match up with yours.
That's where I think the beauty of it comes.
And
That's
I think
at least where I'm
sometimes
thinking.
when it's well, why don't you include us? It's almost like, well, why though? Like that's a privileged statement to make, that you feel entitled that you must be included in something.
That individuals want to start using the term?
No, that you feel that it's a requirement that you're included. Like
I don't. So, but
No, I'm not saying you.
I'm just saying that I don't want to use the word. I don't like the word, and it isn't part of my culture to partake in that. In the part of this is more of when are we going to create a boundary where that rules of engagement for everyone.
Right.
And that's not saying that you have to include white people in the small circle that it feels passionate about that word. I'm saying that when are we creating a boundary that people know this is how I'm supposed to act?
Any type of exclusion creates pain and hardship. It doesn't matter what kind of exclusion it is. So whether it's because it belongs to you or not. And I completely understand where you're coming from, but any kind of exclusion, no matter what it is, creates boundaries and hardship.
But good fences make good neighbors.
Oh, that's perfect, because
Like
I
that.
was, we have this thing that I understand that if you get it, we have a term that says, I'm gonna invite you, you can come to the bar.
cookout.
Come to the bar. You can come to the house.
She invited me to one.
We know
There
that
was
you
no
get it.
cookout,
We
right?
know that there's an ally in you, and there's
Exactly.
somebody
Yes.
that gets it and understands it. You can come over.
Yeah.
And it folds into the endearment of what we're talking about.
I'm very selective about who I do dinner with. I can do professional dinners all day long, 24/7. I'm very selective about who comes to my house.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Very
Absolutely.
the energy that walks in my door
Absolutely.
has got to be a certain way.
Yep.
It's black, white, Chinese, it doesn't matter what it is,
Yeah.
who it is.
Yeah. Energy
I'm
has
very
no
selective
color.
about my house has been blessed. The olive oil's been the whole night, sage, all of that. Because I am very very particular because it's my space. And I need to feel safe. And not everybody is allowed. I am a very open and honest person. I love people. Again, the possibility of people serving other people passionately. Love all of that. But when I'm in my domain, I'm no longer a public figure. I am a daughter. I am a friend. I am a stepmom. I'm all those things that I'm a human being. I am not a poster child. I'm none of that. And so when you get invited to the house, you've arrived.
Well, and I think that's also that's the way we naturally live life. There are different levels of intimacy.
Right.
If we accept the fact that I'm going to do things with my wife, and I'm doing it with anybody else in this room here.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
If we accept that, then why can't we say if one person's allowed to have those boundaries, then why not a group? Why not a group of people have that different levels of intimacy? What's so dangerous about that? I don't need to be in every single space out there. There are some places I need to be excluded, and that's okay, because there's different levels of intimacy there. And that's I wish we would embrace that more.
I just want to point out really quickly though, when Dasia invites me to her cookouts, she tells me a different time than the rest of her friends. Because
she wants you to get there when everybody comes.
Yeah.
I don't want you the first one there.
Yeah.
I'm addressed. She's still not put
it's starting
together.
at 8, and then my ass shows up at 8. Turns out she meant 9.
You're gonna be helping.
But
put
exactly.
something
If you
together.
show up on time, you're gonna be chopping vegetables.
I get the opposite. People tell me a half an hour before because I'm always late. I'm always on island time.
I love you.
I believe that it's a time for us to reinvent and represent. And when crisis happens, we have an opportunity either to stay stagnant, to stay still, or we have the opportunity to progress.
Here it is. It's time for your top 3 kick-ass and things that you can start doing differently today. Number 1, challenge and change unconscious bias. Expose it, deal with it, talk about it, understand it, and then change it. Utilize online resources, hire a facilitator. Number 2, fight unintentional exclusion. You can maintain your culture and beliefs, anything that you grew up with, what's your family and your traditions. You can maintain all of that while inviting allies and supporters to the table. In our journey through DEI, there will be moments of awkwardness and growth and discomfort in the unknown. It's time to bring your allies to the table. Number 3, practice grace in change. People are going to grow, they're going to change, they're going to learn. Give them a chance. Give them the grace to accept the past behavior and demonstrate change for the better. Forgive, forget, go ahead. Right now, go ahead, get your phone out. Call somebody and tell them you forgive them. There's your top 3, kick ass.
Coming up on Dissecting Diversity.
But as a female, as a lesbian, as a whatever, we're all the people who are living the double lives to support the straight world, straight white world.
To make you feel comfortable.
Right.
Correct. I was fighting battles where my counterparts were being promoted and getting the opportunities that I knew I was qualified just as well for. And so what did I do? I took those words and I started putting these suits on because it was giving me a slight advantage of walking into a room and being recognized by what I was wearing. That's code switching.
So I agree, and I remember last year after George Floyd's murder, anyone and everyone came out and made statements, and I'm like, my goodness, you'd think these are the original abolitionists, when their actions were not there, in my opinion. But the more that I thought about it, the more I'm like, at least we're having the conversation.
And if we don't push the rules, if we don't bend them, then we can't change them. If it's law forever, then none of us would vote, and none of us, we have to push and bend and push, and it takes rebels to do that.
That is the accountability check that social media and video phones and everything else like that has now provided a vehicle for.
Learn, love, kick ass.